Welcome, I'm Ron de Parmesan, and you're watching Newscats. Have you ever wondered what goes down when nations clash in the shadows? Well, get ready, because we're about to dive into a tense situation that unfolded recently. On September 8th, 2024, the Israeli Air Force launched airstrikes on the Scientific Research Studies Center, or CERS for short, in Masyaf, Syria. This isn't just any run-of-the-mill research facility. It's alleged to be a hotbed for Iranian military operations, particularly in the realm of producing chemical weapons and cutting-edge missile technology. Boom! Talk about a dangerous mix. The airstrikes tragically claimed the lives of at least 14 individuals, with over 40 more injured, 6 of them critically. We're not just talking about numbers here, these are real lives impacted by a serious escalation in an already volatile region. As we delve deeper into the fallout, there's no easy way to sugarcoat the damage done. Syrian state media confirmed these casualty figures, and it's worth noting that initial reports indicated only 5 fatalities. But as time rolled on, the true scale of the tragedy became painfully clear. Fires broke out across the area post-strikes, highlighting devastating damage to infrastructure. First responders and local firefighting teams sprang into action, tackling the chaos. And let me tell you, they were hustling like a cat chasing after a laser pointer. The Israeli strikes began at approximately 11:20 p.m. local time, a time chosen for maximum impact. You've got to hand it to the Israeli forces. Their timing was certainly calculated. But the humanitarian implications? Well, they paint a different picture altogether. A significant player in this intense scenario is none other than Benny Gantz, Israel's defense minister. Back in 2022, he marked these facilities as pivotal to Iran's military expansion in Syria. You see, Israel's military strategy hasn't shifted much since the beginning of the Syrian civil war in 2011. They have consistently targeted Iranian military installations in an effort to curb Tehran's expanding influence. This latest strike marks a renewed chapter in what feels like a never-ending saga. It's like a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game, where each side's every move has troubling consequences not just for them, but for anyone else caught in the crossfire. Let's not ignore what this strike means on a larger scale. The potential for heightened military actions on both sides is tangible. With military forces spread across Syria and even extending into Lebanon, the tension is almost a living entity. These airstrikes aren't just a standalone event. They symbolize how delicate the geopolitical situation has become. The reactions from Iranian forces or their allied groups could send ripples throughout the region, escalating chaos like a cat pouncing on an unsuspecting mouse. The stakes here feel enormous, and we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of what might come next. As we hang on to this unfolding drama, it's essential to reflect on the broader context, the ongoing struggle against Iranian entrenchment in the region. While Masyaf might look like just another spot on the map to some, its role in military development is incredibly significant, making it a strategic focal point. This airstrike fits into Israel's overarching goal of containing Iran's ambitions in the area. So, what lies ahead? Many of us are glued to our screens, anxious for future developments. This situation could spark a series of retaliatory actions, unraveling something far more complex in the weeks to come. The energy in the air is palpable. As this story continues to unfold, we've all got to stay alert. Remember, in a scenario like this, anything can happen. Meow. Just to keep things interesting, let's add some perspective here with direct quotes from local officials in Masyaf, who describe the effects of the strikes on their communities. They mention that among the deceased are civilians, including families who live nearby, which sadly highlights the real human cost of these military operations we often hear about in the news. When we talk about what's being produced at the CRs, we're looking at some serious stuff chemical weapons and advanced missile technologies. This hits home when we remember the fears that surround such developments. Military analysts have been weighing in too, discussing how these striking actions could rebalance power dynamics in the region. They argue that these operations could provoke Iranian forces to mobilize even more aggressively in response, potentially leading to a dangerous escalation involving Iran's proxy groups spread across Syria and Lebanon. So, as you can probably guess, we're not just entering a new phase in this conflict, we're diving headfirst into a storm that could reshape the landscape of the Middle East as we know it. Now, let's take a closer look at how we got here. Since the onset of the Syrian civil war in 2011, Israel has been executing airstrikes targeting Iranian military assets, each strike building on the last. Just think about it. There's a timeline here documenting these airstrikes as a form of ongoing policy. Every single one has been about restricting Iranian entrenchment, and this latest move in Masyaf is just another chapter in that story. There's also the international community's reaction to consider. With these strikes being reported by reputable news sources, including Syrian state media, how will global players respond? To wrap this up, as we keep our eyes on the unfolding situation in Masyaf and beyond, it's crucial to stay engaged. The events we watch can have major implications for international relations moving forward, and who knows, this could lead to bigger conflicts we can barely fathom. So folks, keep your thoughts flowing in the comments and don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you're digging these updates. We're living in wild times, and you won't want to miss a moment of this ongoing saga that has so much at stake. I'm Ron de Parmesan, and this has been another Newscat special report. Meow!